This video will be about lurchers, but also including reverse lurchers. So first, what is a lurcher? Normally a lurcher is a dog that at least contains one parent breed that has a running dog, sidehound, Pedigree.
Sla na 300 meter af naar links en volg de A2.
For example, greyhound, a whippet, deerhound, and the likes. And it can also be an interbreeding between two different types of sidehounds. So, for example, a whippet greyhound can be seen by some people as a lurcher, and especially a deerhound greyhound will be seen as a lurcher. But oftentimes they also breed in something else than a running dog, namely a dog that has additional features. So, for example, a collie type of breed, herding breeds, because they have good feet and are also fast and have good stamina. But also bull breeds, they also have good stamina but have a lot of additional courage, and also bring ability to take down bigger prey than a sidehound does at its own, because a sidehound normally has a very narrow and small head, and a bull breed has exactly the opposite. So in a perfect bull breed, for example, you get a lot of the head of the bull breed and the body of the running dog, increasing holding power but also stamina, while sacrificing only a little bit.
Houd verderop links uit en volg de A76.
Another benefit of the crossing in of lurchers is that you get more heterosis.
Houd na een kilometer links aan en volg de A76.
Bastard power, so the two breeds, they are genetically different and they also then intertwine with each other and giving you more genetic drift, so more genetic diversity, which can be a big benefit in health and performance of those dogs. So for example, if you breed in whippet blood into your greyhound, you might get dogs that are even faster than a pure greyhound, whereas a whippet is not faster and a pure greyhound is the
Houd je links
fastest.
aan en neem daarna de eerste afrit naar rechts.
Fastest pure breed that we know. And Saluki, for example, is fast from the longer distance, so it has better stamina. So sometimes they are breeding in different
Sla
breeds
hier af naar rechts.
to get that. Also sometimes they want to have a better skin, better coat for protection, and that can also be settled by breeding in, for example, dogs that already have a high degree of running dog in them. One example would be the Pedigree Terrier, which is a cross between running dogs and one-handed terriers on the other. And with that, you get a dog that has a better skin, more ferocity, and more prey drive. And oftentimes also still extremely fast. So battling to a whippet, for example, will be only a little bit smaller than a normal whippet, but will have a lot better coats to begin with, and also a lot more ability to take down prey, which is a benefit, and a better coat to protect it against weather, and also to reduce cuts, and better skin. But Paddingtons nowadays are not so much being worked anymore, so they're also looking at other breeds, including, for example, Pedigree Terrier or the bull breeds that I mentioned. If you want a little bit of the bull type of power, but also want to have a better coat, oftentimes they look at soft-coated Pedigree Terriers. So they are like a bull breed, but then a little bit lighter in the bone normally, and with a coat, durable coat. Another thing that is also done in lurchers is that they cross them back to the running dog parentage. So, for example, you started with a breed them back to another running dog. Either if they use, for example, the example of the bull grey, so for example pit bull on one side, Staffordshire Bull Terrier on one side, and on the other side greyhound. So let's take pit bull and greyhound in this example. So it's, F1 has 50% of both parents, and they cross it back into a running dog, for example another greyhound, to get 75% greyhound and 25% bull. So the speeds will then increase again because you have a higher degree of running dog, whereas the bull blood gives a lot more robustness and strength and capabilities to deal with quarry. But even with 25% it still has quite a lot of additional benefits. Another thing to take into consideration is that oftentimes they breed male of different breeds to a female of a running dog breed, and that has the biggest advantages in the respect or in the area of speed, because if you look at horses and donkeys, if you interbreed them and the horse is the mother, you get we saw it in Dutch, you get muildier, whereas if the donkey is the mother, you get a muilezel, so a mule donkey. So mule donkey or mule horse, and the mother decides what it will look like the most. There's also in dogs. So if you, for example, cross an American Pit Bull Terrier with a greyhound, and the mother is the American Pit Bull Terrier, it will look a lot more like an American Pit Bull Terrier. And if you cross it with a greyhound, oftentimes they will look a lot more like the greyhound. And also within one litter you can have some that are more throwback to the father side, and some that are more throwback to the mother side. But take this into consideration. And what they also do, and that will still be a lurcher, even 25% bull and collie and 75% running dog, for example, greyhound, is still a lurcher. It's not less of a lurcher that there's less different blood in it. As I mentioned, even if you're into breed running dogs, it still will be called a lurcher. So that's that. What's then a reverse lurcher? And why are reverse lurchers also being used to produce lurchers? So reverse lurcher is then when you cross it back to non-running dog breed. So for example, if you have a blue grey, that you then breed 50% first cross back to the pit bull, or to another breed like a Pedigree Terrier or whatever. By doing so, you decrease the running dog lineage under 50%, and then it is a reverse lurcher. So in my example, it will be 25% running dog and 75%, for example, bull breed. What those 75% other breeds and 25% running dogs are often also used to create lurchers. How so? So if you have that 75% other dog, 25% running dog, and you cross it back to another running dog, then the result is 50% will be running dog from one side, and from the other side they get 12.5%, so the half of 25% to begin with. And it's also called a 3-8, 5-8 cross. So if you divide it into 8 particles, then you have 4 particles from one side, 4 particles from one side. 4 particles from one side are all running dog, so that is 4 particles, and then you get one additional particle from the other side, and it was 25% running dog. And 3-8 will then be other type of dogs, and that's producing the 3-8s, 5-8 lurchers. Why would you breed reverse lurcher other than to get that often sought after 3-8, 5-8 balance, which is often optimized for getting all the properties of the other dog breed as much blood, but you think that a little bit more of that blood or more of other non-running dog blood will help you. So for example, the reverse lurcher with bull blood is 75% bull and 25% greyhound. But you can also say you make a reverse lurcher by crossing in the first generation bull to, for example, border collie, and that would make it having all three characteristics into the dog, and then breed it oftentimes back again to. So then you have collie blood, bull blood, and running dog blood into that reverse lurcher, and oftentimes then breeding it back to 100% running dog to get over 50% running dog in your lurcher. But also, if you just want to stick with the reverse lurcher, for example, if you're crossing a Pedigree or Whippet and you see a dog that is a lot more capable and fast enough to catch the quarry, but would not mind to have a dog a little bit smaller still, because Pedigree will take down the size of the dog and sacrificing an additional sum of the speed, but getting a stronger dog overall. This can be a way to move forward. It depends. It also largely depends on the speed of the dog, because most of the time lurchers are used for speedy chases and then dispatch the quarry. But for example, if you were using as your other type of dog, a dog that is already a lurcher, but then bred as a purebred, for example, a Pedigree, because already it was bred by running dogs and terriers to begin with. But if you breed that in, you already have a fast dog that you breed in. So even if you go 75% Pedigree and 25% Whippet, this dog will still be a lot faster than 75% Pedigree and 25% Whippet, of course, because a Pedigree is a much sturdier dog. So not so much based on speed, but especially enormously sturdy and capable below ground. Whereas a Pedigree is already a lurcher type of dog, chasing, or for example rabbits to begin with. So you can also get a lot higher when you have a faster dog to begin with. Also deerhounds, you can also say that deerhounds or wolfhounds, Irish wolfhounds, are already quite fast dogs. You will be hard pressed to find a working wolfhound, but it's already a cross between a running dog, for example, Scottish deerhound, that already carries a little bit stronger blood into its veins, and for example mastiff type of blood to create a sturdier and stronger deerhound. Also, if you find a working type Great Dane, you already have a very fast type of mastiff to begin with, so you might get away with a little bit more of that blood. And also because they are so big, also with the wolfhound and deerhound, because they're so big, it also adds to the speed. Oftentimes they want to have tall dogs, a lot taller, also the bull grey than the American Bull Terrier, so a lot higher, the balls, a lot more air beneath them, and cross that with stronger type of dogs. So what is the trouble oftentimes with Whippets and greyhounds? They are very well at explosive bursts of speed, but they are not so good at maintaining that. So the stamina is a lot less than even American Bull Terrier, which was bred to work a lot longer if needed. You might say completely different, because greyhound looks a lot more like a long distance runner than compared to, for example, American Bull Terrier looks a lot more like a sprinter, but there are differences in the running dog as well. Whereas if you go for a Suzuki, for example, it's also a running dog, but it's more built for endurance, so it will not get to the top speed that greyhound is capable of, but it's able to sustain that speed a lot longer. So if the running match will take a longer periods, the Sanuki will be a lot more in its benefit and will beat the greyhound, whereas in shorter distances the greyhound will normally always win. So it gives you an indication there. Hope this video helped. It's now raining quite hard, so I will just stop this video because you will also hear that rain. I wish you a great day. Hope this dog walker video now from the car